I'm David Johnson, the President and CEO of the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, and I am really honored to be with this terrific group today. So what I'd like to do is open our panel discussion now and ask all of our panelists to join me on stage. Aaron Schacht, who is the Vice President of Innovation, Regulatory and Business Development from Elanco. Jack Phillips, who's the President and CEO of Roche Diagnostics, North America, and again, our board chair. Welcome. Wayne Eckerle, the Vice President of Global Research and Technology for Cummins. Welcome. Jim Collins, back again from Corteva Agriscience. And Jim, we're especially glad to have you here from Delaware, and we hope you will come often, very often. And then Dr. Sue Ellspermann, who's the President of Ivy Tech Community College, and also our colleague on CSCP. Welcome, Sue. So what I'd like to do, and maybe Aaron, I'll start with you, and I'll come over and join you folks, would be just to have each of you go through a little bit about yourselves and about your enterprises, and talk a little bit about both your historically vertical strategies, but also increasingly begin to have this sort of horizontal discussion.
Great. Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be here. I have the honor and privilege to work alongside Beth as the vice chair of Agrinova, so I feel connected to this in more than just one way. It was a little over 60 years ago that the parent company of Elanco introduced its first agricultural product, and a little over 30 years later that Lilly partnered with Dow to create Dow Elanco, which became Dow Agrisciences, and at the same time created an exquisite focus on animal health within the remaining Elanco division. And it's been now 30 years since then that Lilly has said, we now think it's time for Elanco to stand on its own, and we executed an IPO earlier this year. So this is a year of great momentum and great realization of the potential of small ideas getting big later. And I think that's sort of a theme not only for this sector, but it's a theme for the work we do. And I think Jim made a great point about how humble beginnings of a single idea can turn into a whole product or a whole industry or a whole sector. And I think what you find that happens in the course of that idea moving along is the collisions that take place, connecting that idea with the means necessary to introduce a new product or a concept. So my job at Elanco is to actually create an environment where that happens at rapid speed with great precision, but also take advantage of the unpredictability and the serendipity that comes out of leading an R&D enterprise. So I have the great privilege to lead the R&D function, the regulatory function, and the business development groups at Elanco, and our job is simply to create as much innovation potential in animal health that we can. And we do this because there are farmers and veterinarians who need to maintain the health and well-being of animals for the people that depend on those animals, whether it's a livestock producer or you as a pet owner. Our job is to make sure that that animal is treated well, fed well, and then maintains its health. And so we take great pride in what we do to uphold and uplift that, and we are driven by an innovation practice that frankly is on the verge of amazing things as we think about all the technologies that will converge to make that possible in new and different ways. And we're in an era where that's now required because older technologies need to be replaced by newer ideas and newer technologies. And so I'm just excited to be here, and it's a privilege to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Aaron. Jim.
I think you guys heard a lot from me a moment ago. I did mention that one of the aspects of our company and the industry is certainly this concept of collaboration and working together. And I'm struck as I'm sitting up here, Jeff Simmons, who I've known for a long time. Jeff and I served together on the FFA board. And what Elanco has just been through of spinning out and becoming a standalone company has been a source of inspiration for us as we think about those next steps.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I know it's hard work. We've been watching intently. And then Pat Ward, who is the CFO at Cummins, is on DowDuPont's board and will become a board member for Corteva going forward. So the connections, I think, are an important part of the industry and of the challenge that you lay out. So, as I said in my words, we're excited about the role that we will play as a pure play, 100% focused ag company going forward. So that means all 22,000 employees are going to wake up every day and thinking about one thing, and that's farmer and farm productivity. But we've added this consumer element to our DNA now, to be so aware and so connected to the kind of consumer dialogues that the previous speaker had kind of educated us on. And it's a huge challenge. And science is kind of scary, right? And as he said, but we collectively have a real opportunity here, I think, to begin to change it. And maybe I'll just end with an anecdote. I was in Europe this past week, and I had a chance to sit with one of the key members of the European regulatory group, and we had a great conversation. And at the end of it, he said, you guys are doing some great things. I'd like to sit down and chat some more about it. That's a huge step, right? To just begin to have those kinds of conversations in a real civil and productive way. So anyway, I'm excited to where we're headed and excited to be here today with the rest of the group.
That's great. Thank you. Wayne.
Hi, I'm representing Tom Weinbarger. He's our CEO, and he's on the CICC board and also part of some of the other parts of that umbrella over there. I don't know if you know much about Cummins. Kind of what we do is deliver what I'll say is clean power. We deliver power in a variety of places. It's in mobile applications, so trucks and buses and so forth. We deliver power to your business in agriculture equipment and forestry equipment. And we also deliver power in terms of providing residential standby power for industry and grid firming power for the grid. It's interesting. We will celebrate our 100th year anniversary next year. And I know that's not a long time for maybe some companies, but we're certainly very proud of it. But it wasn't that long ago where, and I've been at Cummins for 29 years, I wasn't sure if we were going to get there. Back in 2002, we were literally borrowing money to pay the payroll. And so you say, well, what happened? And what was going on at that time was there was a lot of regulations around the emissions from internal combustion engines. And we as a company decided, hey, we're going to embrace this. Rather than fighting these regulations, we're going to be part of it, because who doesn't want a clean environment, right? We do, everybody does. And so we put a lot of effort into developing technology to actually get clean power coming from our IC engines. So now fast forward today, and we're still doing that, except it's a lot tougher proposition now, because it's not just NOx and particulate that matters, but it's also the CO2 coming out of not only our equipment, but in the equipment that we use to produce our equipment. So as I work on technology, I continue to work on internal combustion engines, because they're very, very important. But now I'm in a world where electrification has come, right? Because of changes in the technology. Instead of developing an IC engine, I'm now developing a powertrain that may or may not have an internal combustion engine, likely will have a battery, may have a fuel cell, may or may not run on petroleum. The drive is to run on renewable fuels. In our power generation market, from an electricity standpoint, rather than having a generator set that's running on a petroleum fuel, we set up a system that can use all the renewables that are available in a given region to provide that power in as a renewable way as possible. So relative to this conversation, so what does that have to do with the ag sciences business, other than a customer-supplier relationship? It's like Dave talked about. So what I'm on is a very accelerated path to move into the digital engineering ecosystem. So it's all about data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. How can we get all of this information to develop our products faster, and most importantly, to meet our customers' needs? Because in the end, in our business, it's a commercial business, and people do not buy on emotion, right? They buy on us delivering what their needs are. And so there's a huge opportunity, in our industry to collaborate with other industries in this field, in those latter areas. So thank you.
Wayne, thank you.
Well said. I guess, first of all, thanks, Beth, for having me, inviting me here today. Maybe a personal story, first off, that's actually never on my bio, but these kind of events make you kind of remember things of your past. But actually, I was thinking this weekend, my first job out of school was I worked in the electronics division of Motorola. And my job was to actually sell radio and communications electronics equipment in the 5 counties of southeast Indiana to farmers, and others as well, but to farmers. And at the time, we were really changing. We were driving innovation there and changing the way farmers communicated and did their jobs. And then within that same time with Motorola, I had the opportunity to work on a project with Chiquita Brands International, where we worked on providing communications through Iridium, which is the first satellite communication device to the banana fields in Central America. And because it was critical at that time, actually, back in the 80s, at that time because of the drug cartels and safety and so forth. And for me, it's just a personally an incredible reminder of how, no matter what industry you're in, it continues to move and advance. But anyway, that brings me to where I'm at today. So I'm the head of North America, as David said, for Roche Diagnostics. We're based here in Indianapolis on the northeast side. On campus there, we have about 3,000 employees. We're part of a much bigger healthcare company, Roche. Roche is the #2 pharmaceutical company in the world by size, and we are the #1 in vitro diagnostics company in the world. We have about 93,000 employees. About 30,000 of those employees are focused in the area of diagnostics. And what we do in diagnostics is very, very broad and very deep. We're involved in many technologies around sequencing, molecular science, to immunoassay, blood testing, all around, mostly, not all, I'll get to the not all, around human health and improving the lives of patients. And what we do, essentially, the key thing that we do at the end of the day is provide answers and provide better answers to clinicians to improve the lives of patients, direct the right therapy, and so forth. When I think about the tie here and why I'm here today is to really kind of get into this horizontal discussion about how all of our industries are intersecting. But really, from a diagnostics perspective and what we do at Roche, the technology that we do at Roche in diagnostics touches and has touched the ag business for years and years, and really the entire ecosystem of agriculture. A couple examples would be in the area of molecular PCR. That's one of the key technologies that's used today for salmonella, detection of salmonella. We talked about, Jim mentioned gene editing. I was mentioned in the prior presentation as well. That doesn't happen without sequencing technology. And then when you get into plant, soil analysis, et cetera, that's all diagnostics based. And maybe one last story for me is in my time in diagnostics, I was running a tissue diagnostics business that Roche now owns. And back in early 2000, the presentation prior to Jim's, we were talking about GMO and the need for facts and the need for science around this topic that frankly creates a lot of hysteria. Back in early 2000, the hysteria at the time was around bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which is better known as mad cow disease. And I personally am the organization I was running at the time. We worked with the USDA to develop a prion antibody. We had automation at the time to, through a punch biopsy of the brain of a cow, to accurately detect mad cow disease. And with that was the start of really, as a food industry, as the USDA, getting our arms around this problem at the time that was creating, huge hysteria in the community. So anyway, it's great to be here today. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Sue, I guess.
Right.
Sue.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. And I think back to a conversation with Beth Bechtel back in the summer of 2012, when this idea of Agrinovus was still just an idea, a white paper, I believe it started with, and had the opportunity to serve as Indiana's Secretary of Agriculture and do some trade missions across the world and promote everything agriculture. And we always had a big umbrella. So I think Scott Hamilton would be very proud of us. It was always about a big umbrella, and it is, but it's more. And that's why we're all on this panel today when we think about all of this convergence and all that goes into ag biosciences. So now, fast forward to today, as I'm president of Ivy Tech, I came to Ivy Tech because I knew what a workforce engine Ivy Tech is for the state of Indiana. For those who don't know, over 100,000 students, another 60,000 high school students will touch through dual credit and dual enrollment every year. We're in 50 communities, 19 campuses, more than 40 locations, et cetera, all over the state of Indiana, with a real opportunity to help build that talent pipeline. About 60% of our students will go into the workforce when they leave us with a certificate or an associate degree. The other 40% will go on to Purdue. In fact, half of our ag students, I say we're the second largest ag college in the state of Indiana, about half of them will go on to Purdue in a perfect 2+2, but of course to all of our institutions across the great state. Big challenge. The unique challenge I came into was that the state of Indiana told Ivy Tech, you must be more workforce aligned, that we must provide those graduates that are prepared for the jobs, the middle skill jobs out there that were going unfilled, continue to go unfilled as we have tens of thousands of openings out there, both in today's jobs but also looking ahead. And so we have reorganized our college according to actually quadrants. We categorize every program. Is it a high demand that we can't fill seats? Is it a limited enrollment? We got to figure out how to grow the program, more seats. Do we need to shrink it, or are we in equilibrium? And we have done that over the past 2 years to really try to get that right. What I gave you with this visual is just a sense of not just Ivy Tech, but understanding this talent pipeline is a really big thing. It's not just ag. That's what we tried to show on the left. It's not just, it is supply chain and logistics. When we think of Cummins, it's chemistry. We do have the technologies like precision ag, and of course biology, but IT, I see Michael Angelier over there. My goodness, when we think precision ag, data analytics, all that we need. And then we have all these ways of credentialing, whether it's a high school diploma, a certificate or certification, associates, bachelors, masters, PhDs, and then jobs that exist today and jobs that don't yet exist. And if you don't know this about higher education, it's a little hard for us to change fast. We are learning to do that. I said sometimes I feel like I'm rebuilding the Ivy Tech plane while we're flying it, but we have to be rapidly changing for the jobs of today as well as the jobs that are emerging out there, and that is, in fact, the big challenge all of us, whether you're a community college or you're Purdue or IU or any of our great esteemed institutions across the state of Indiana. It is in fact a challenge, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we are creating that talented pipeline of both traditionally 18-year-olds as well as adult workers coming back to skill up and make sure that we have the strong industries today and tomorrow.
Thanks, Sue. I actually want to pick up on that. On your last theme there on challenge. Another of your colleagues, our former governor, Mitch Daniels, who's now the president of Purdue,
yes,
and who is known to be able to turn a pretty good phrase, has had a series of events, specifically around artificial intelligence, but it's really looking at the future of these technologies, and the title of it is Dawn or Doom. So he has various speakers come in to say this is either the beginning of a whole new era of living, or it's sort of the end of life as we know it. And actually, and Jim, you touched on this a little bit in your comments too, because you're talking about phasing innovation and sort of staging your steps. I want to talk just for a minute about the defensive side of this. I mean, it's great to talk about embracing the opportunities, but the kinds of trends we're talking about here, you know, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they're hard to get ahead of. So what are people doing just to keep up, just to stay in the game? Not just sort of the gee whiz of let's go there, but how are we staying above water right now?
I think it's a great question. And the technology is changing probably faster than we realize. And you know that a graduate student that comes through a data science or a data analytics curriculum, I've heard the professors say that they're already obsolete the day they graduate. Mm-hmm. The science has moved on. Yeah. I think finding that fresh, cutting-edge talent, being willing to attract folks from maybe the non-traditional places that we've looked in the past, and being open to not knowing that we don't know everything that's going on inside, internally to us. This idea of open innovation and open collaboration and inviting, outside perspectives in. And that's hard for us. We've been a not invented here kind of a company for a long, long time, and admitting that we don't know everything that's going on and being more open. And I find the more we talk about the kinds of things we're trying to do, a lot of those new things come to us. They find us. They seek us out. So that's at least some of the ways we're trying to stay out ahead of it.
Yeah. Anybody else? Jack, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess the thing that we're learning at Roche, a lot of these topics, I mean, it's just amazing. Cummins to Corteva, the things that Sue's talking about, they all so intersect. And the things that we're really working on being better at Roche is these are areas that you don't have all the answers. And it's not clear. It's definitely not clear in some cases, what is the business model? How are we actually going to make money at this? And it is an area that you really have to have a growth mindset. You've got to be smart about the investments that you make, but you've also got to be comfortable with the growth mindset that you don't have all the answers, that you may fail faster than you succeed. And then, what we're trying to do at Roche is always, as well as have a linkage. I mean, our diagnostic and digital transformation efforts that are going on at Roche, which are definitely going on across the businesses here, we intend to make a sustainable business out of that. And I think it's important for businesses to really understand, is technology going to be something that's going to enable the rest of what we do? And I think that's okay. Or is this technology going to be something that's going to actually be standalone? And I think either one is okay, but I think you need to kind of think about where you're going to bring this technology in. And then the other thing across horizontally, David, is I think there is so much opportunity to learn from different sectors more so than ever, and collaborate, and in some cases steal shamelessly where it makes sense, but in other cases really look at where the intersections make sense and to work on projects together.
Wayne or Aaron, any comments?
Yeah, look, I think there's a general trend towards dealing with more and more information, trying to make more and more sense of it, and do that faster across every kind of business. And so really these are technologies that amplify our human intelligence, but let's not forget it begins with human intelligence in the first place. And so I think the companies that exploit this best are the ones that combine the best of both. Really bright people leveraging leading tools to create powerful insights, and most importantly, making and acting on those decisions. Because if you just learn something but don't do something differently, it's going to leave you, I think, wanting more.
Yeah, I think at Cummins, I mean, all this is a means to an end. It's not a business in and of itself. And I think the key for us is really setting up this culture of innovation. And a lot of the advances we're making in these areas are individuals who are looking at what's out there and bringing it in their specific areas. And that's really where we're making the most progress, I think.
From a talent standpoint, I think we as higher education have to help our students and graduates understand that the skills they have in one field today that they're starting are transferable and valuable across. Don't say that I have to be an ag to work for Corteva. I don't have to be to Cummins. I don't have to be an engineer to work for Cummins, or I have to be thinking that. We have to help see that these skill sets, and you're going to have to continue to learn and grow constantly across. That's the growth mindset that you talk about, so that we have a talent pool as a state that can cross these industries and make them all better.
So let's take your talent point, and I've got a question for you, but I want to throw something out to the industry folks here first around that. I meet with all of our CICP leaders at least annually, and oftentimes many more times than that. And as both Jack and Sue know, I will typically say, what's your biggest challenge and what's the biggest thing you're trying to get done? And invariably, this is on the industry side now. It doesn't matter whether the industry is insurance or Agbioscience or tech or Cummins, frankly, or Roche. The answer comes back, well, we need people who can really help us in predictive analytics, data analytics, artificial intelligence. One of the real issues, if I were in your shoes, at least, one of the real issues I have as a complete layperson in all this is, what does that translate back into in terms of what does someone need to know how to do to be able to be useful in your business? What is that skill set? What is that capability? What is that training? And I'm curious if there's a commonality among the four of you in that, because my guess is there is. But again, how do we translate from that overall demand to saying, if this person could do this, it would be useful to me today or tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I think what we need more than anything is people who can help us create insight out of complex sets of information and then create means of acting on that. So it's more than just the data jockeys who can whip it all up into some sort of scheme and throw automation at it. It really is, what's the signal in all that noise, and what do we do about it? I mean, to me, that's the most meaningful aspect of this. So people who can go beyond just the technical alchemy and translate it into a decision, I think, are the really differentiated talent.
So some variation of data analytics, predictive analytics is what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, we made an acquisition about a little more than a year ago, a company called Granular out in San Francisco. It's a company that's really focused on the farm management system, the dollars and cents of farming, and helping growers with a set of tools so that they can understand right down to the acre level. You know, are they making more money, being more productive per acre? And so anyway, I had a chance to go out and visit. You're out in Silicon Valley, and you're there with a lot of young folks. And I had someone that we were interviewing that they were hiring, and she said to me, she goes, you know, I don't know a whole lot about agriculture. And I said, great, because I got 20,000 other people who know everything about agriculture. What we don't know a lot about is data and data analytics. Right. And the skill that I was looking for there was her willingness to collaborate, to take the knowledge that she had and her unique perspective and be able to work with an agronomist from Kenya or sit down with a large grower from Brazil and apply her skills in a very collaborative, non-traditional way.
That makes sense.
I think for us, it's systems thinkers, to be honest with you. I mean, I have a lot of really good, deep technical people in their silos. We are not successful until we think across the whole system. And I need those experts, but those experts have to not only be deep, but they have to be broad. And the other part is lifelong learning. It was interesting, as we were getting electrification, our human resources person came to me and said, Wayne, what are we going to do? Where are we going to find all these people? I said, I got them. Right? I just got to direct them in the right direction, and they'll go. I mean, physics are physics, and we'll move on. So, you know, we at Cummins are taking a much different approach than maybe some of the companies of Detroit. You know, we have a lot of very good talent, and we think we can use it to get to where we need to be.
It could be, I mean, you could be working for Roche now, what you just said. I mean, system, and Jim is the same way. I say that all the time, too. Like, I know I have a lot of really competent people that know diagnostics, laboratory medicine. What we need is this. And it's amazing how common the comments are across, I think, the group here. Just for me to add, just, you know, one of the experiences that I've had recently is we're building this new business in digital diagnostics. And it certainly for development, there are certain skill sets that, you know, you have to have, and, you know, from a programming and development standpoint that are core. But once you start getting closer to the customer, what we're finding is diversity matters. You know, diversity is key. And so in this business, as we start to blossom it, we are focused in oncology right now. And so we have people that have deep experience in oncology, deep experience in the web, in cloud-based services. And then we also have some people that have the core Roche experience, like laboratory medicine experience. And what we're finding is by really connecting those individuals together as one team, it's about a team of 50 now, that diversity is really helping us to fail fast, learn from each other, pick up new ideas, and continue to move forward.
So, Sue, what do you do with all that? So what you're hearing are very similar themes, but you're also hearing a lot of need for flexibility and lifelong learning, and also even just change within a system. How do you begin to train people for that kind of work experience?
So we do look at the data that's out there, the MZ kind of data, to understand what the actual jobs are, keeping in mind the kind of higher level thinking skills that we've talked about here. But you heard in all a lot of technology skills, so IT, software development, data analytics, architecture, the Internet of Things, all those things have to be built in. And just this past year, we increased our IT production 75%. It's a lot of increase in a year in completions, but we need to keep doing that year over year. We've got our biotech students out here. You know, we've increased that by 1/3. We've got agriculture out there, etc. But we have to do two things. We have to try to figure out what programs with you on our advisory boards, what are those kind of general skill sets you're looking for. We need to update constantly, and we do constantly update the curriculum. But then those other skills, the systems thinking kind of skills, we have to think differently. I think about advanced manufacturing, where mechatronics is now kind of the big thing. Well, that used to not be combined. We have to think of this convergence of how we rethink Industry 4.0. How do we create the new credentials that will help those graduates be successful in your places, but also knowing that is not the last degree or credential they're going to get. Whether you continue to skill them up or you send them back to one of our institutions to skill up, it's not going to be the end. But the more we can create the basics of those systems thinkers, problem solvers, insight developers within all of the programs we do, we're serving you better and preparing those students that this is not the end, it's the beginning of a career, said by someone who's jumped a lot of careers in my lifetime.
Right. So staying on this topic of talent, and also maybe trying to bring in a specific example, and one that's known to a couple of you on the panel. Jack, let's talk about the Roche Academy, which we have a lot of pride in at the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, because you have developed that in conjunction with our Talent and Workforce Initiative, ASCEND. The CICP has 5 sector initiatives, and then it's got a 6th initiative that is sector agnostic, because again, it cuts across all, because everybody shares this need for talent. And ASCEND works both generally, but it also works specifically with employers to develop particular pipelines of talent and opportunity. Jack Phillips is one of the first of our leaders here who decided to put that capability to the test and develop this enterprise called Roche Academy. I think, again, if you could talk about this for a moment, because I think it'd be helpful to see if there are other things like that among our other panelists.
Yeah, just maybe, sure. So just maybe just a setup on the problem we're trying to solve here in the case for change. So we have about almost 1,000 engineers out in the field across North America that take care of our customers every day. And the skill set there is very much around medical technology and also engineering. So we have automation with our laboratory equipment, but it's also very tied to obviously producing diagnostic tests, which is driven by science and antibodies and tests and so forth. The challenge that we've had for multiple years is we've got significant workforce that's retiring. So a high percentage of our workforce that's very tenured and awesome. I mean, just great. I mean, they just know the customers, they know the instruments, they've been around them forever. They're retiring. Our business is growing well above market, so our footprint, we continue to innovate, we continue to launch new systems, it's growing. And then the third area is complexity. It's what we're all talking about here is our solutions are getting so much more complex that they're no longer, an instrument-based kind of solution. It's a complete solution that brings in IT, connectivity, et cetera, et cetera. So we do need to develop our current skill set, but also a future skill set differently. That's kind of the problem. So we've embarked on a partnership with ASCEND, Indiana, which I'm really happy about. We laid out this problem that we were trying to solve, and they helped us create a strategy on how to solve it. One strategy. I don't think it's the only one, by the way. I think there's multiple ways we got to be going here. So with that, we've come together with UIndy, and we've developed a custom curriculum, okay, that really, it's Roche Academy. And students can sign up and say, hey, I want to get, it's for biomedical equipment technicians, 4-year degree. And it, again, it brings in all the critical sciences and engineering that we've talked about. In some areas, they still have to go very deep there. They've got to learn and they've got to be competent. But what's new is we're incorporating newness around technology, data, system thinking, and then also throughout this 4-year degree, they'll have an opportunity to intern at Roche, paid internships at Roche. They'll have an opportunity to actually incorporate some of their class learning with hands-on learning at Roche. We will also pay for part of their education as they go through this. And then when they graduate, they will be, I mean, assuming they hit all what they're responsible for, they will have a job. And they will have a job with one of the largest healthcare companies in the world, and a job where career advancement exists, and they will be off and flying right out of school. And so that's the promise. We were looking at, David, our goal is to, once we, the program just got kicked off, and so it's going to be a while before we get our first interns and so forth. We're ultimately, when we're hitting full stride, we'll be hiring 30 people a year out of this program.
So what you're talking about, Jack, in one sense, is it's an intervention in the marketplace to make something happen that you don't have time to wait to happen.
Well, totally. I tell my team, I meet with them every month on head count and so forth. In this particular area, I use the analogy as a hamster wheel. We're on this hamster wheel, and we just continue to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And as we all know, that creates immense insanity pretty quickly. So we're really trying to break the mold of how we go about traditionally recruiting, training, and then putting these individuals into the workforce.
And are others of you having strategies similar to that? I mean, you having, again, to sort of look at the whole pipeline in some different ways to meet these demands?
Yeah, one of the things that we've done is we started our own certificate program in systems engineering. And so we've brought consultants in from the outside who actually have time to spend teaching the courses, and it's about a 1-year program, and it's obvious it's free, and we've set it up, and we started a little over a year ago, and we were ready to put about 200 engineers through it.
Wow!
And again, it has direct impact, because shockingly, one of my greatest difficulties are getting people to understand the requirements before they want to take off, and grinding it into what does that really mean? Are you really understanding what the customer wants is amazingly difficult, and so that's sort of the cornerstone of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Any other comments on that? So another question for you, again, it's just on one more question on this human capital, and again, one that I hear actually from several of our members. There's a limited supply and a lot of demand. So, and I want to start with particularly our two Agbiosciences folks here. Are you having to compete with kind of everybody for the talent that you're looking for? And if you are, how do you sell an opportunity at Corteva or at Elanco as being better, cooler than an opportunity at Google? Just
well, that's a tough sell. But
you can pick another one. But
no, but
yeah.
It does start for us today. It starts with what we're trying to do when we created Corteva. As we looked at the legacy of the 3 companies that were coming together, we knew that we were going to have to compete for talent in the future, and so to create a company that's got a new, young, fresh, vibrant brand. And it was so funny, you've seen our logo. When we launched the logo, I had somebody call me up and say, Jim, you're an ag company. How come your logo is not green? It's blue. And I said, no, we're an innovation company, and blue is the color of innovation. we'll let Mother Nature be green in all of our advertisements, but we'll have that logo. And we're getting feedback about that. So targeting the right groups, creating some new imagery, and then most importantly, we talked about this a minute ago. This is not your father's ag business today. It is every skill from, we're hiring drone pilots. So we have, folks who have aviation degrees. We're hiring biotech and bioscience technicians. We're hiring good old-fashioned agronomists, but that are walking out in the field with a handheld computer that has more knowledge on that computer than all that we had when we sent a man to the moon. So they've got to know how to interact in that environment. And then we're doing some amazing things all around the world. This isn't just about large-scale production in North America or Latin America. These are some young folks who have really enjoyed the thought of helping to feed a growing world, and so being deployed to Africa, being in a Southeast Asian environment is really fulfilling to them. And so making sure we're marketing the full breadth of what an ag career can really offer.
That's great.
Makes sense.
I love the color of your logo. Look at Elanco. I think we try to think about what draws people to Elanco, and because Elanco's based in central Indiana, we also have to sort of get over the fact that this isn't a coast, or it's not a place with mountains. So we have to really think carefully about this. One of the things that we're doing, obviously, is leveraging Agrinovus and participating in Agrinovus, because that's part of the core mission of Agrinovus, is how do we create a greenfield, so to speak, of talent that's ready, prepared, understands what the opportunity here is in the region, right, and just enriches the attention span that we get from potential job seekers. I think for us, we have to draw attention to our mission, food and companionship, enriching lives. And so anybody who's motivated by sustainable food production or pets in a person's life, I mean, we got an edge over other industries, so to speak, maybe the tech industries. You can create another app, or you can come, save the life of an animal that an old lady depends on. You choose. So we draw attention to that. I think the other thing, we have to compete now, though, if you think about the life science space, human health is a very big draw for almost all of the same kind of scientists we employ.
Right.
So how do we distinguish ourselves? And again, it's to convince them that you can go to human health and you can work on technology platforms that have been around for 15 or 20 years and very mature, or you can come to animal health where those are just beginning to take hold and take root, and you can be a pioneer. So I think short of having an ocean and a mountain, we got to have an ocean of opportunities and a mountain of vision to attract them here, and I think that's what we focus on, and a good color for your logo.
Again, a real clear articulation of mission, which is that's a really...
So if I can add just one thing is a little challenge, FCA, Fiat Chrysler, is taking third graders through the manufacturing plant, because that's when they know their biggest amount of retirements will happen. We know from the governor's workforce cabinet, we've got to get these opportunities into the classrooms in middle school at least, and not once it's great when they're in FFA, it's great with 4-H, but we've really got to help them understand, our young people understand what these great opportunities are, because by the time Ascend gets them as juniors or seniors in college, they may have missed the greatest opportunity they could have had. So in all cases, I want to encourage, in this initiative, Agbioscience, what a great inclusive area. If we can help, we're already ag-friendly as a state. We are tech-friendly and science-friendly. How do we bring that, infuse that early into the educational process so our kids are actually looking for it and thinking it's as cool as Silicon Valley?
Right. Two things I'd add, David, to that point is one is, in my experience, is culture trumps strategy every day of the week. So when you're looking at talent and competing for talent and keeping talent, at the end of the day, if you take care of your own organization and focus on culture and focus on really kind of embracing the employees and listening to them and creating a vibrant culture where they want to be there, then as competition and so forth for jobs comes up, you're in good shape. I think the second thing I would say is, gosh, the more diverse business, and as we grow into this innovation sector that we can develop here in Indiana, the better we're all going to be. We are all going to be, because yeah, we have people at Roche that leave to go to Lilly, but we have people from Lilly or Corteva or wherever come to Roche. We have people relocating that happen to have a spouse that's focused in ag, and vice versa, et cetera. So I think we can all work together, and the more vibrant workforce that we can develop here together, it's going to benefit all of us.
So one last question from me, and then we'll go to the audience. And by the way, when we go to the audience, it's really hard to see out there, so whoever has questions is going to need to come pretty far forward. And Jim, in a way, this is aimed at you, I guess, because you're the person from out of town on our panel. But it's really intended for all of you, and maybe it's a very brief question, and maybe there aren't a whole lot of answers to it. But from our vantage point as a Central Indiana Corporate Partnership and the leadership organization that we are, with our pretty special access to decision makers and investments, and also from a standpoint of thinking about how we should be advising our policymakers in Indiana, is there anything that Indiana, and by Indiana I really mean both the public sector and or the corporate sector coming together, can be doing better to make this work for you? And I'm interested in everybody's answers, but I'm really interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's an immediate thing that comes to mind that could be done better, but there's a couple of things that come to mind to say, just keep doing what you're doing. And the first thing that I was struck with is, you know, we had to make some tough decisions about locations for the new company as we combined these three. And I can remember on one of my first trips here to Indiana and Indianapolis, the delegation was led by folks that were coming out of the ag schools, and the first part of it was, we're a source of talent, and so being located in a state that is putting priority on education, both at the primary, secondary, and as well as the collegiate level, and is generating some incredible talent that they're already here, they're already in Indiana, they want to stay, and they want to go to work for a great global company like Corteva. So it was that first attention to the education side of the equation. Second, obviously, it's accessibility. It's our ability with a broad global footprint. We've got a very large group in Des Moines, Iowa. We've got some folks out on the East Coast. I've got this whole group now that's out on the West Coast in the digital space. Being able to effortlessly move people and knowledge and information around. And so the infrastructure, the investments that have gone on here are certainly a big part of that. And then finally, it's just that whole business-friendly climate, and that attracts an ecosystem of collaborators that are here. And I mentioned before this idea of collaboration. Part of that is this idea of open innovation and working with others in a very transparent and open way to, as I mentioned, acknowledge that we won't have all of the answers, but to be able to tap into some bright minds that are here and that are excited about what we're doing. And know that the environment here is conducive to attracting those type of folks. Those were the big things.
That's very helpful. Aaron, as someone who's launching something new, what do you
I think there's always a balance between reasons to be here in the first place and reasons to stay. I guess I'd emphasize reasons to be here in the first place and just focus on that. People are always going to choose to leave. If we try to promote retention over attraction, I think we might keep the wrong group. Honestly. So I would just say let's amplify our efforts to be a reason to come. And if we're a net exporter of talent on the back end of that, that's great too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wayne or Jack, any comments on this?
I mean, we talked a little bit about diversity earlier. I think the more the state can do to embrace diversity is critical to us because, I mean, as I look at my technical center, I don't even know how many countries I have people from in my tech center, and that is the secret sauce. So the more we can do to embrace that will certainly be helpful.
I totally echo that, and then I would be remiss if I didn't, throw out a big kudos on 16 Tech and the progress we're making there with 16 Tech and our innovation hub. Frankly, that wouldn't be possible without tremendous collaboration, but it goes way beyond industry. I mean, with the state and philanthropy. I mean, it's a great example of how we really collaborate well together. My focus feedback is, we around from a state is we need to continue to, I believe, move faster in these areas of diversity in being we are a welcoming community, but I think we do have to demonstrate that more in some of these opportunities that we have around hate crime legislation, health of our community, smoking cessation, and those kind of things. And I beat that drum all the time. And while we're focused on that, I just think we need to start moving quicker as a community for the people that live in it.
Right. Awesome answer. Yeah. That's So we have a few minutes here for questions from the audience.
Got a lineup over here.
And
Right over here.
Over.
Where are you?
again, it's
Either way.
really hard to see up here because the lights are.
There's a bunch of them over here. Yeah.
Go.
Hi, I'm Kat Howenstein, and I'm with a software development company here in Indianapolis. I'd love to know, as far as you guys are on the cutting edge in farming and in biosciences, where the sticking points for data, either in collection or use, are in your sectors. What you see is really holding you back still.
As I think about the livestock production side of things, I think we live in an era where people want to know where their food came from and what's in it. And so as we think about livestock production, I think we're going to see the producers more and more capture and document what has been the experience of the growth pattern of whether it's an animal or a plant. And technologies like blockchain become the underpinning of being able to do that. It's going to be a day where you go to the either the internet or to the actual grocery shelf, and instead of looking at a label that says no antibiotics ever or no this or no that, you're actually just going to take a snapshot of a Q code, and up comes the history of that animal. So if we think about it that way, how do you put that whole data intelligence system together to enable the final consumer to make the best informed choice and not be subject to things like GMO is evil or this thing is bad, but really make them smarter using smarter technology?
I think for us, it's a little bit about the interchangeability or interoperability of data across the multi-systems. And when you think about the Internet of Things, every grower out there has got data streaming from a number of different devices, and each one of those is kind of a unique source. But it's the ability to integrate that data across all of that and then apply some intellectual capability to it, be it artificial or just some of the great folks that we have taking a look at it and helping growers then make decisions based on knowledge, not just data and info. And right now, we have some data standards, so some of that data is interchangeable, but if your equipment out there is green or red or blue, it comes to us in different formats. And, we spend a lot of time integrating that information to make sure that it's quality and we can do something with it.
I'm laughing here because that's exactly our challenge in healthcare. It starts with interoperability and the ability to take a huge amount of data and actually first get the data, and then secondly actually aggregate the data and then actually put it in an organized fashion to do something with it. This is where I think, though, for at least I can only speak for healthcare, but in healthcare, this is where the Amazons of the world are helping us. And just this week, Amazon Web Services announced, a new platform that we've actually been engaged with them on a long time, which is around the ability to more effectively pull information off of the EMR, the electronic medical record, which is a big challenge with interoperability. And again, I think that's a great example to where those players like Google and Amazon, they figured this out a long time ago, and I think they're really going to help our industry. It's going to complement our industry and not be a lot of people see it as a threat. And I can only believe that if they are interested in ag, that's something where that kind of solution will help there too.
Yeah. So we'll take one from over there and then one from over there in a moment.
Hi, I'm Claire Bainey again from Purdue University, and I was wondering, as we're talking about converging sectors, what can we do specifically as a young person to continue to communicate about the importance of breaking industry boundaries, because I bet a lot of us see the value in that, but what can we do to introduce that perspective even more to others who might not see that?
I got a great example of this. This year at the World Food Prize, the two World Food Prize laureates that were named, they have spent their entire career in early childhood nutrition. And so here was one of the first times where we were not spending 2 or 3 days talking about the quantity of food and the productivity off the farm, but we were talking about the nutritional value of that. And they were really an advocate of pushing the ag industry to start to think more from a healthcare perspective of, why is early childhood nutrition so important? And, companies like Corteva, what kind of products are you developing that can be grown in the African market that can help to solve for some of the vitamin deficiencies or some of the protein deficiencies that they see in early childhood development? So it's a cross-health food and nutrition kind of message that was really fresh. It was one of the first time I've heard that come together.
I think defining work as the problems we need to solve versus the things we use to solve problems is probably a good way to do it as well, because then you're not constrained by what I know. You're constrained by what I need to know to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure there are any industry norms anymore. And I think as long as you can solve problems faster that meets customer needs, that's what counts.
Anything goes.
Okay, over here.
Hi, my name is Laura Smith. I had a question about the personnel, and I liked that the conversation, this panel touched on personnel as much as the tech industry. Sorry, but I think Aaron mentioned human intelligence, and we certainly were talking about developing young people and what skills we might need or see, and how we meet those needs. But what about a term I'm going to deem as veteran intelligence, and not the ones that are retiring in the next couple of years, but those in between. And I know it was touched on a little bit, but what are the other organizations doing to roll out these new ideas and communicate your vision, and then, if needed, train or redirect the employees that you do have that are veteran in your industries?
That's a great point. I really, it's one we're addressing at Roche for sure, and I'll just be transparent. The reason why we're partly addressing it is because of how we've started building a diverse workforce, and with that diverse workforce comes a lot of millennial hires and initiatives around that. And the feedback that I've personally gotten is, what about the term that we've used within Roche is the seasoned professionals? And when I first heard it personally, it took my breath away, because I'm like, oh my gosh, without these individuals, we would be out of business, right? They are so valuable. And so I would say 2 things that we're doing. One is to really continue to promote and live this agile mindset and this learning mindset, and embrace everyone to do that and step out of their comfort zone. That's number one. And the second one I would say that we're doing is really focusing on mentoring and reverse mentoring. So the professionals that we have so much to offer to the new people coming into the organization. But then also, reverse of that, the new people coming into the organization can really offer a lot to the seasoned professionals. And I think historically in business, that hasn't always been the way it has gone, but we're really trying to promote that reverse mentoring to go both ways.
For us, it's focusing on our hourly employees. We have totally revamped our performance management system, and we have a system focused on our hourly employees so they have a career path. And that is going to pay big dividends. And I haven't had a chance to talk about manufacturing very much, but wow, it's a huge opportunity for sure.
We are really out of time, but we're going to take another question. I'm sorry we have more than one questioner there, but one last question.
My name's Ryan Henderson. I'm part of the Greensburg FFA chapter. My question is primarily for Mr. Collins. What are the prime focuses in your various locations, and do they vary in locations?
That's a great question. I talked about the locations here in Indianapolis. It is primarily our chemistry business, the marketing and R&D organizations that are really focused on crop protection. And then just because of its DNA and how long it's been there, the majority of our seed business, our seed R&D and biotech work is done in Johnston, Iowa. That said, there's some very interesting crossovers that have come through the integration where you find that we've got chemistry folks that are part of our seed treatment and seed coating business that are sitting in Johnston where the seed business is. And we have a lot of really great folks here in Indianapolis who understand insect control. They're working on traits here that will be the next generation of insect control traits that'll go into our seed business. So we've got some seed and biotech folks sitting here. I think as we go forward, more and more, those lines will continue to blur. These will just become excellence centers. And a few of the folks up here talked about how do you seamlessly work across disciplines to solve a problem. I don't care whether you came from the chemistry business or the seed business or whether you grew up in sales and marketing or biotech. There's a customer out there with a problem that we're trying to solve. And these teams can be virtual and they can come together and then come apart and come back together again. So those are the two primary focus of those locations.
And with that, we are at the end of a superb discussion. Sue and Jack, Wayne, Jim, Aaron, thank you. Please join me in thanking you.